Hello beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. Today I have got a different kind of session for you. We are going to do a 15-minute express press to handstand workshop. Press to handstand being feet on the ground, hands on the floor, and our legs float through a straddle position up to a handstand. There are a few prerequisites for this session. You need to be able to do a freestanding handstand. You need to have a fairly flexible pancake or straddle position. And you do need to have quite a bit of wrist flexibility and wrist strength. So one way you could check that is by holding a planche front support position, which we're going to do later in this session. If you can hold that for 5 to 10 seconds, then you should be good to start giving press to handstands a go. So let's get everything started. As always, we're going to kick things off with a warm-up. This one is going to focus around the flexibility and activations required for press to handstands. So we are going to be taking off our shoes because generally when we train handstands, shoes don't really help us. So we're going to start off with a roll down, a knee bend in a hamstring stretch. Then we're going to walk out to a push-up position or a front support if you have a gymnastics background. We're going to go into a scat push-up. Then we're going to walk all the way back up again, and we're going to do 5 reps. So slowly, vertebrae by vertebrae, we're working our way down to that forward fold position. I do have a slight bend in my knees, which I am doing on purpose. I'm getting my hands as close to the floor as you can. If you can't get all the way down to the floor, you can rest your hands on your shins. Then from here, we're going to keep one leg straight and then press one knee as far forward as we can. Hold that for a beat or two and then swap sides. Then we're going to walk our hands out to that push-up position, nice and strong. Then we're going to, keeping our ribs and our lower back lifted, we're going to sink our chest towards the floor and then press away. And then we're walking back in, pausing in that hamstring stretch, and then rolling all the way back up, and that is 1 rep. So we've got 4 to go. Rolling back down. We are going to slowly, with each rep, increase the speed of the roll down. Strong position, shoulder blades towards spine, shoulder blades away from spine, pushing back up. Nice strong hand placements. Pause in that forward fold, rolling all the way up. And then number 3, a little bit faster, trying to get a little bit more range of motion each time we go into that forward fold position. Strong push up, ribs lifted, core engaged, glutes engaged. Walking back in, trying to get those shoulders as close to the floor as you can in the forward fold. 3, rep number 4, knee bend. Should be feeling this in the hamstring and the glute. Walking out, strong push-up position. Walking back in. Really get that stretch. Rolling up. Standing tall. Last one. We're going a little bit faster, but we're not rushing. We're not cutting corners. 2 knee bends. Push-up position. Really strong through the shoulders. Walking back in. Not letting our hips rock from side to side when we do that plank walk. First warm-up exercise, done. Okay, we're dropping down onto the ground for our second warm-up exercise. We're going to be doing a downward dog. Then we're going to reach one hand back to touch the opposite ankle, and then the other hand back to touch the opposite ankle. Then we're going to do that planche position that I mentioned at the start where we're going to check our wrist mobility. We're going to hold that for 5 seconds, and then we're going to push back into our downward dog. Let's get into it. So hands shoulder width apart, starting on all fours, tucking our toes under, and we're pressing through our palms and through our toes into that downward dog. You can let your heels sink to the ground for a second here. We're going to come to a push-up position. This is where I like to start. Then we're going to press our hips up to the ceiling, press through one hand, then we're going to reach for that opposite ankle, back to push-up, other side, really pushing through the shoulder. Then we're going to turn our hands out slightly. If you can do this with your fingers pointing forward, please do. Hands are going to turn out slightly, and we're going to walk our toes forward as far as we can and hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Back to that push-up position, and we're going to repeat. So we're doing 5 reps. That was 1. So push-up position, ankle tap, push-up position, walking forward, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Back to our push-up, ankle tap, really lifting those hips, trying to get a strong position through that shoulder, walking forward, holding that planche, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Back to that push-up position, reaching back, touching the ankle, strong through that supporting shoulder, sliding forward, ribs lifted, core engaged, glutes engaged. 3, 2, 1. We've got one more rep. Back to the ankle, other side, getting those shoulders as far forward as you can. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And relax. Second warm-up exercise done. Moving into a little bit more of a mobility focus component. We're going to do a wide straddle stretch, a narrow straddle stretch, and then we're going to do some active lowers. So getting those legs into a straddle position doesn't need to be as wide as you can go, because for most people when learning a press to handstand, depending on what your strengths and weaknesses are, you probably won't actually need to rely so much on flexibility as strength. But we're going to get our legs as wide as we can, and we're just going to walk our hands out as far forward as we can, trying to keep our knees pointing up to the ceiling. So we don't want to have our legs rotating in towards the floor. We want to keep our glutes engaged, keep our legs up towards the ceiling whilst we're trying to get that reach forward with our hands and our chest. Once you get to your max, you're going to breathe nice and deeply, and we're going to hold for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, keeping the knees up to the ceiling. Each time you breathe out, see if you can get a little bit more of a range of motion. 3, 2, 1, and then walking the hands back up. That is one of the prerequisites that I did mention. You'll see later on in the video why having a really flexible or a very competent straddle position can really help you in a press to handstand. If you're struggling to get your hands, say, in line with your knees or even in line with your ankles, that is going to make a press to handstand much more challenging. It will mean that you have to compensate with the lack of flexibility, with an additional amount of strength. So anytime that you're not able to use all of the different body mechanisms, the balance is going to be tipped in one direction. So you are going to need either or both a larger amount of strength, and you're going to need quite a lot of forward lean, which means you're going to need some wrist flexibility and strength as well. So keep that in mind. Moving into a narrow straddle. So this is not a pike, but enough space for us to fit our body as close to the floor down the middle. Then we're going to do the same thing. We're walking our hands as far forward as we can. You shouldn't need to worry so much about legs rolling in this position, just because your legs are in that narrow position. And we're going to hold that for 10, 9, remembering to breathe deeply. And each time we're breathing out, we're creeping those fingers forward and trying to increase the range of motion. Keeping in mind that bent knees in this position is going to, once again, create more challenges when you are going to do your press to handstands. So if you're struggling to keep your legs straight, try to press them to the ground as hard as you can, using those hamstrings, using those quads. It is not the most important thing, having straight legs. If you're learning to press to handstand, keeping your legs completely straight is not the most important thing. And it will actually make it easier if you bend your legs for certain techniques. But if we want to create good fundamentals and good foundations to build from, then there is no reason why we wouldn't expect straight legs in this position. And we're going to do some active lowers. So you have a few options with this. The easiest version is just going to be hands across your chest, and you're trying to lower your chest to the ground and then rise back up before any part of your torso or arms touches the ground. So arms can be crossed over the chest. We can do hands on hips with our elbows pulling back. This is probably the version I would prefer over the hands across the chest. We're trying to lower as far as we can. And then the ideal model is arms up on our ears, trying to keep our arms almost behind our head as we lower to the ground. So we're going to do 6 to 10 reps of those active lowers in the version that suits you. I'm going to do the overhead version. You can actually also do these with a weight plate, so you can pop the weight plate behind your back, or you can hold dumbbells or weights in your hands, and that's going to further extend this. But for now, because this is our warm-up, it isn't actually conditioning or strengthening exercises or our drills. We're just going to do it with body weight. So we're doing 6, keeping our legs nice and straight. 5, 4, we're not rushing. So remember, we're trying not to touch the ground and then press back up. We're trying to keep it as active as possible. 3, 2, no rushing. 1. Beautiful. Third warm up, done. Now we're going to do a little bit of a hip activation, hip and glute activation. This, I think, is actually one of the key missing pieces in press to handstand drills. You'll find, like I find, that I get cramps in my quads and my glutes and my core when I am really trying to progress my press to handstand. And I find that a lot of the drills that I know off the top of my head are great for core and quads, but I don't actually have many for glutes. So we're going to do some hip rotations in this quadruped position. So on all fours, hands are underneath shoulders, knees are underneath hips. Then we're going to press our bent leg to 90 degrees out to the side. Then we're going to rotate it around to the back and then bring it back down. But the goal here is to not have any leaning and not have any compensation with our spine, our shoulders, and our hips. So we're trying to keep our hips even as we press that leg as high as you can out to the side. Then you're going to keep it high, rotate it around to the back, and then bring it back in. We're going to do 5. My hip just cracked. This is going to move your hip through its range of motion. So we're pressing out as far as we can, keeping it high, rotating it around. We're trying to get it as high as we can without letting our spine compensate, bringing it down. That's 2 reps. Rotate around, press high, back down. That's 3. 4, last one. Hopefully, you will be feeling your glute waking up. So, like I said, that lateral side of the glute, but also the posterior or the back part of the glute. Swapping to the other side. So once again, hands under shoulders, knees under hips, and we're pressing that leg out to the side, as high as you can get it without letting everything else tilt. Rotate, keeping that spine neutral, and return. Press out to the side, rotate, really concentrating on using the hip to make the movement happen, not the rest of the body, not the spine, not the ribs, not the shoulders. That's 3. Sorry about my breathing. 4, last one. Rotating. 5, and that is our full warm-up round 1 done. As always, we've got to do round 2. Back to our first exercise in our warm-up, which is our roll down, knee bend to scat push-up, starting not so slow this time because we've obviously done a full round of our warm-up circuit, so you can move at the pace pretty much as what you finished at in your 5th rep in the first round of this exercise. As we're walking those hands back in, as I mentioned in round 1, we want to keep our hips as stable as possible, pausing in that forward fold, get that stretch. Don't shy away from the discomfort of that knee bend and the kind of nerve flossing that it creates. So watch hips are minimally rocking from side to side. I do also have my feet hip width apart, and that is on purpose. That is to ensure that I am able to get maximum stability as I'm walking in and out of that push-up position. Really engage the whole body, feet all the way through, legs, hips, glutes, core, shoulders, arms, and hands. Should start to notice that your range of motion has progressed from when we first started the warm-up. I think that's our 4th rep. Back into not being very good at counting. Oh, I forgot my knee bend. Sorry. We'll do it when we get back. Knee bend. That one really, it's a pincher. Fabulous. Then we've got exercise 2, which is our downward dog ankle tap planche. It's back into that push-up position. Feet hip width apart once again. Nice strong core. We're going to press back, hips to the ceiling, reaching for that ankle, and then sliding forward. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. As you saw, I slid my feet a little bit further forward to try to extend myself and get that little bit more range of motion. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I actually feel like I need to take my watch off because it's hindering my wrist flexibility. Do a little bit of turn. That will help a little bit. 5, 4, 3. Keep ribs lifted. Strong chest. Back. 3 reps. Really pushing strong through that single arm support as you're reaching back. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last rep. Ooh, feet were a bit far that time. And planche for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fabulous. 2 down, 2 to go. Back into our wide straddle for 10 seconds. Walking those hands out, keeping knees up to the ceiling. Oh, my hip cracked. Seeing if we can start where we left off in terms of range of motion. 10, 9. Breathing nice and deep. Breathing out each time you do that. Trying to get that little bit more. 3, 2, 1. Walking hands back up. Narrow it in a little bit. Walking back down. You'll notice I do have pointed toes. In a press to handstand, pointed toes actually do make a difference. So if you can, pressing the tops of those feet nice and flat. Breathing nice and deep. Trying to lengthen the body. Trying to get those ribs and belly button in between those legs and walking back up. Then into that semi-narrow position, arm position that you prefer. As I said, pointed toes do have an impact on your press to handstand, so later on you'll see what I mean. So we're going to point toes, 10 active lowers, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Remembering that we're trying to keep the back as flat as we can. We're trying to keep the arms as far back as we can. Last exercise, coming onto all fours. So on all fours, pressing nice and strong in that support through the shoulders. Leg lifts out to the side as high as it can go without tilting the body, and then drop it back down. Remember, we're doing 5 reps. Pressing that foot up towards the ceiling, so the posterior glute is waking up. That's 3. 2 more reps. 4, you may find because you are not using your spine and the rest of your body to increase the range of motion, you may find that your range of motion doesn't actually look as big as what you would be expecting. So I'll show you what it looks like if you just compensate with everything. You will still feel some activation, but as I said, we're trying to get activation of the target area. So that's why we're trying not to use anything else to make it happen. 5 reps on this side, taking your time. We don't want to move quickly for this. If you move quickly, yes, you will be going through your range of motion, but you won't get quite the same glute activation as if you really take your time and press into those top positions. Last rep. Cool. Warm up is done, gang. It is time for us to actually get into some handstands. Let's do it. Okay, starting off with just handstand. We're going to, the goal is to do handstand free balance. So if you're able to free balance for 3, 4, 5 plus seconds, then I recommend we're practicing handstand free balance on the floor. If you're not able to really find your balance spot, which I'll talk about in a second, and hold it for pause there and feel like you know where that spot is, then you're going to do your wall handstands, which I'll show you in a second. But for free balance, I talk a lot about finding your balance spot. So that is the spot where when you kick up to handstand, it feels like you're not falling in either direction. You feel pretty balanced, and you might only feel it fleetingly, but eventually that's going to be the spot that you aim for and try to stay in when you're trying to free balance away from the wall. You don't have to actually be able to hold a handstand for that long in order to work press to handstands, but obviously it helps a lot if you can free balance for an extended period of time, because it's just going to allow you more of a success rate once you're getting up towards those legs together positions. We're going to see, this is my first handstand of the day, so we'll see how it looks. But I'm going to aim for just 10 seconds to begin with, and I might talk you through it a little bit when I'm upside down and see, maybe we'll go sideways so you can see the lines, because lines are very important when it comes to handstand. Looking at a handstand sideways often helps you determine what the issues are. So without further ado, I feel like I say that way too often. I will split a lot, get my balance, and then slowly join my legs. We're holding for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You may have noticed that the shape that I was in when I kicked up and the shape that I finished in was slightly different, or you might not have noticed because there were very subtle differences. But what I was trying to do was go from a slight shoulder angle, rib flare, and loose lower back. And I was trying to extend through my shoulders, so we make this line from the arm through the shoulder to the chest straighter, and then from the shoulder through the chest to the hip straighter. Because in gymnastics, that is a less deductible line, but also in terms of positioning and efficiency of moving your body, the straighter your line, the less likely you are to leak energy. The straighter your line, the less likely you are that less likely it is that you are loose through all of your joints. And looseness through your joints can create, like I said, it can create energy leaks when you're doing tumbling, but it can also create instability. Show you the wall handstand quickly. I am assuming that if you are working on press to handstands, you don't need help learning how to get into a wall handstand. So I normally cartwheel in. And I'm just going to show you what I'm looking for if you are doing wall handstand hold. We're trying to get as close to the wall with our hands as we can. Obviously, we are not a flat body, so your wrists aren't going to get all the way to the wall. Once you're there, we're going to try to press your armpits towards the wall, but pull your chest and your ribs away from the wall. We're going to try to press our hips towards the wall and pull our knees away from the wall and touch the wall with only our toes. If you can do that consistently, then we're going to pull one leg away without letting our body shape change at all, and that will very lightly pull your foot off the wall. However, you need to be very controlled with your body position, very tight. If you are loose, this is what will happen. Nothing. So you need to be very, very tight so that that leg changes the angle of your body by a few degrees. So that's how I want you to practice your wall balance if that's what you're doing. So that's our first exercise. Exercise number 2, very simple, but really effective. So that's kind of narrow, not narrow straddle, not wide straddle, moderate straddle. We're getting back down into that position that we did earlier with our stretches. You're going to reach your hands as far forward as you can, and we're going to try to lift our legs off the ground with our hands out in front. Your knees need to be straight when you do this. So that means turning on your quads so that you're lifting from your hips, not lifting with a loose leg, okay? Pointed toes, you'll see why soon. And we're going to do 10 reps. So ideal model is hands pretty much in line with feet or in front of feet. Very advanced. I'm not there. However, what we don't want is to be having our hands all the way up in here and still not being able to get any lift. If that's where you are, we might need to regress, and we might need to, after this video, I'll do an absolute beginner video. But for now, we're trying to get our hands as far out in front as possible, and you'll see you can gradually progress forwards. So we'll see how I go with this position. I did them yesterday, and I was not that impressed. Okay, pointed toes, quads turned on, pressing through the fingertips. I don't want flat hands, I want fingertips. And then we're going to do 10 reps. When we're doing this, we're lifting up as high as we can, and we are controlling back down, okay? There should be no plopping of the legs on the floor. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm sorry if you just got a quad and a core and a foot cramp, because I was on the verge of that too. Next up, you're going to need a set of sliders. These are just carpet sliders from Bunnings. We in the gym have some of the proper fitness sliders as well, but I found that these are obviously cheaper and work just as well. Plus they're really nice and big, so you can turn them sideways and fit 2 feet on them. If you don't have sliders, there are so many options. If you have floorboards or tiles, you can put socks on and you can do this on that. If you have carpet, you can get a piece of cardboard or like a poster or laminated paper, and that should work. It'll get scrunched up and ruined eventually, but like it's a piece of paper, so that's okay. We're going to do pike ups. These are another they're not beginner, but they're very, very effective exercises. However, I do often see them performed poorly in one particular way. You can, just as an aside, as a regression, you can do a tuck up. However, if we are not ready for pike ups, then that might mean that press to handstands might be a little bit out of your reach at the moment. So if you're not able to do the pike up here, then press to handstands are going to prove to be quite challenging. Anyways, the version that I want you to watch out for is this, where we're going to start in a push-up position. You can do this with your toes tucked under, but it is a bit clunky and awkward. So I'm going to be doing it with my toes pointed. Start in a push-up position. We slide our feet towards our hands and raise our hips at the same time. So it puts us in a kind of forward fold position, but all of our weight needs to stay on our hands. Our feet should not be weight bearing, and that is where I have issues. So this is what we're looking for. Pushing up, pushing back down. What I don't want to see, and it might be, sometimes it is hard to see, but it is where we're pushing up, but we're resting back on our feet. And so you need to be able to be in that position and hold your weight primarily on your hands if you want those legs to float off the floor and go to a handstand. We are going to do 6 to 10 reps of these. However, there is an extension. So if you can do the extension, you're going to do 4 to 6 reps because they can be a little bit clunky. I'll show you the extension and then we'll do our reps together. So extension, let's see if my presses are pressing today. We pike up, we float, and we press to handstand and then reset. Okay, but as I said, we're just going to be doing the pike up version today for 6 to 10 reps. Okay, here we go. So sliding, leaning forward, pressing those hips up, and then back to that front support or push-up position. That's 2. Keeping our weight in our hands. 3, and then making sure that we're locked out in that strong front support. 4, 5, I'm getting stuck. 6, pushing back. Oh my gosh, feet are cramping. Yeah. Whew. That was fun. On to the next. Okay. Next exercise in our circuit is going to be jump, straddle to handstand, straddle down negatives. Sounds complicated. We are doing the jump, straddle to handstand because obviously that's going to be developing the movement pathway that a press to handstand follows. And then the straddle down negative is basically an easier version of a press to handstand. So we're going to try to do it as slowly as we can, and we're going to try to get to straddle hold if you can. If you can't get to straddle hold, that's fine. You just go to where you can, because that does require a lot of forward lean through your shoulders. It does require wrist flexibility, and it does require an extended amount of compression strength than a standard press to handstand. So if you're struggling with the jump, straddle to handstand and you're losing control and you're falling, split it in half. So you'll do 5 jump, straddle to handstands and 5 kick to handstand, straddle down negatives. You can, if you aren't trying to go to the straddle hold, you can do the straddle down negatives against the wall. Starting with your feet in that kind of like narrow straddle distance. Hands are going to go just in front of your toes. And we're going to do the smallest jump you can. So hands, normal handstand position, slightly in front of toes, little bend, jumping to handstand, then reversing the action. Legs out wide, keeping our shoulders right over our hands, pulling your toes towards your wrists, and then we go down to that straddle hold. A lot going on there. We're doing 5 reps, so I'll talk you through it. I like to imagine when I do press to handstands and when I do this drill that I'm being in that position where my toes are starting to pull around from the side and down towards the floor, down towards my wrist. I like to imagine I'm being squashed between 2 pages of a book. So we're trying to get the ankles and the feet as far forward as possible without letting the shoulders go too far forward, okay? That's what makes this so hard, but that in particular is going to help the press to handstand strength that we need to get it from the standing, floating up to handstand. Okay, so seeing if we can decrease the amount of knee bend and explosive entry up to that handstand, making sure we're stacked before we start. Legs as wide as you can get them, pulling them out to the side and then trying to keep them pulling forward and coming down to that finish position. That's 2. For the next one, I'm going to show you over against the wall, but you guys can continue. You can continue doing the version that suits you. So we're going, head is going to be touching the wall. So we want to feel like we can get our shoulders a little bit forward, but not so far forward that we're hurting our wrists or we're going to fall. So we're jumping up to that handstand. Heels can touch the wall. Then we're going to, that was terrible. Pressing shoulders forward and using the wall to leverage your head against. That wasn't actually the best demonstration. I don't do it all that often, but you just need to adjust your distance so that you can actually press against the wall. 2 more. We're trying to go as slowly through this lower part as you can. Oh, almost got a cramp. Last one. The wrists are starting to feel it, I will admit. Oh, no! Oh, they're killed! Oh, dear. Okay, final exercise in today's mini workshop is going to be press to handstand itself. We're going to do it, or I encourage you to do a press to handstand from an elevated surface. So you can do this even off the couch if you're training at home, but I've got like a little mini block that's about 15 centimeters. I can press to handstand from standing, so this is easy, but there's a few things that I want to talk you through. Feet come all the way to the edge of the box, ideally, and then we're trying to get our hands as close to the edge of that box as well. As I mentioned, this is creating that smushed between the pages of a book body position. So we're trying to flatten our body position and get everything. That's in order to get our body weight as much over our center of gravity as possible, and our wrists that are holding our body weight, we want to try to get our mass over that as much as possible, but you have to counterbalance. So you have to have a little bit of forward lean in order to get the heaviest parts of your body, which are generally our bum and legs and our torso, into the vertical line. That might sound a little bit complicated. Don't worry about it if it doesn't make sense. But basically, that's the reason why we're trying to get our hands as close to the edge of the box, which is basically as close to our feet as possible. You're going to press up onto your tippy toes. When I stubbed my foot just before, I have arthritis in my foot, so that really hurts. So this foot doesn't bend on the best of days, so it's feeling a little bit fragile now, so I'll do my best. But we're going to press up onto tippy toes. Once more, keeping our shoulders from falling forward too much and trying to lift our hips up over our wrists as much as possible, pressing through our fingertips, and then hopefully letting those legs float out to the side and coming to a handstand. So that's the goal. You're going to do only 3 tries because we're going to do another round of all of those exercises, number 1. And number 2, you may be noticing, I mentioned it before, wrists can get really, really fatigued in press to handstands when you're first learning them. So we don't want to overwork our wrists. We want to break down all of the different components of the press to handstand individually and then just do a couple of really good tries. So 3, maximum 5 tries of that press to handstand. I'm just going to show you one from standing so you can see what the goal is. You can also do an elevated surface against a wall. So the same positioning as what we did for our handstand, jump to handstand, and then straddle negatives. But you put the box on this, you put the box where your feet would be, and then you lean against the wall to help bolster the shoulder strength that you may not yet have. Okay, press to handstand. I like to start with my hands once again as close to my feet as I can get them. I get nice and comfy. I press through the floor, lift onto the highest tippy toe that I have on the day, which today is not very high. And then weight goes into the hands. We pull the hips over the wrists. And then voila, it's like magic. All right, let's go back to our first exercise. Back into our handstand hold. This doesn't need to be long. It is about finding your balance spot and finding control. It's not about building up muscular endurance right now. We're just trying to find our perfect handstand shape. I'm going to go on the side once again so you can see that line that I was talking about. And I'm just going to hold for 10 seconds, but you can hold for your minimum up to 30. If you can't hold it all, do 3 to 5 tries. If you don't even have a 3-second hold, that way you're accumulating time in that balance spot. Oh, my toe. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let me know in the comments if you would like a separate video on all of my tips for handstand free balance, because I love getting into detail about that. But a few things, as I mentioned, we find our handstand balance spot. That's where we are floating and we're not feeling like we're falling in either direction. That's number 1. Number 2, a prompt I use is weight in your knuckles. So we don't want our weight to feel like it's leaning into the heel of our hand. We want our weight to be in our knuckles and up towards our fingertips. And you would have seen my hands gripping the floor like that, spider fingers. Holding a handstand without spider fingers is extremely challenging. The spider fingers are the steering wheel, and as long as the rest of your body is locked, when you press your fingers into the ground, it will create minor tilts in your body angle to keep you in a handstand. That takes a long time to train, but those 3 things, find your balance point, weight in your knuckles, and use your fingers to control your body angle. 3 key tips. Takes a long time to master them though. Next up, we've got our straddle press lifts. Get ready for a cramp maybe, we'll see. Reaching those hands as far forward as you can. We've got 10 reps. We're trying to not let our body go soggy. We're trying to push through a tall chest. And remember, no plopping and straight legs. Here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They were a struggle. I have got work to do. Next up is slider pike ups. Now, if I am being honest, these are going to really hurt my foot. I will give it a go, but if my toe cannot handle it, I'm going to have to tap out of the slider pike ups today or for this second round, but I will I will talk you through them. We'll see how I go. I may just need to regress them a little bit. Okay, we've got 6 to 10 reps, remembering that you can regress to the tuck up, which is exactly the same thing, except you have bent legs, or you can progress to the pike up press to handstand if you're ready to extend yourself. Okay. Yeah, we can only go to there. That's okay. That's one. Woo! Okay, maybe not. Never mind. You guys are going to do your 6 reps, and I'm going to skip through the next exercise, but I trust that you'll do them. The culprit, handstand, straddle down negatives. I'm going to ensure I can't kick my toe this time. We've got 5 reps, jump to handstand, straddle down negatives. Remembering that we are trying to come down as slowly as we can and jump as little as possible. Whoop. Yep. I actually find pressing to handstand easier than jumping to handstand for obvious reasons. Pressing has much more control. Jumping, harder to control. That's 1 rep. Ooh, that was a slow one. 2. Uh-oh. I'm only human. 3. Wrists are feeling it. I want to say, if your wrists are starting to max out, you don't have to keep pushing through. If you're in pain or if they're fatiguing to the point where you're losing control and you're not able to control your handstand with your fingers, then you don't have to push through. Like I said, press to handstands can be really hard on the wrist, so you don't have to push through. You've got other drills that we can do that aren't so hard on the wrists. Ooh, too fast. All right, not my best rep. We are almost done. Last one. Oh, as you can see, control was lacking, so that probably means that my wrists were a little bit past their point of exercise contributing to my progress. It was more so derailing. Now we're going to do our last thing. Okay, last thing in today's workshop is a set of 3 press to handstands. Just want to quickly mention that if you have yoga blocks, you can actually do your presses off yoga blocks if you want to elevate that surface. Go 3 presses. See if my wrists have the capacity, or my toes. Can't really go onto my tippy toes right now. Woohoo! 1. 2. Oh, just want to mention, take rests, take breaks, give your wrists a wiggle. Don't roll them around too much, because the more you roll them around, the more you stretch them, the looser they get. One thing you can do to really decompress your wrists is flip them over that way. Try to make some fists, and that should kind of counteract the action that we've been training. All right, last one. Woo. Okay, that concludes this little express mini press to handstand workshop. I hope you found something valuable. I hope you found some stretches or some drills or some technical cues that you can take with you when you practice your handstands and your presses on a day-to-day basis. Stay tuned because, as I have mentioned previously, I'm loving doing these follow along sessions. I will be doing a gymnastics strength follow along session. So keep your eyes peeled. If you haven't already, I would appreciate it so much if you did subscribe. If you don't already follow me on TikTok and Instagram, gymnast.fit. I'm trying my hardest to put content up, but I do work a full-time job and none of this makes me any money at this stage. So it is just in my free time, but I am really enjoying it. As I mentioned, if you would like more handstand content, if you would like some just free balancing tips, or if there's something in particular that I haven't mentioned, pop it in the comments. I would love to hear what people are enjoying or what people are needing. But yeah, thanks again for joining me for today's session. Thank you so much for bringing your energy, bringing your open-mindedness, and I will see you in the next video.